Loneliness is really a big issue worldwide. We have technology that can connect us everywhere, but there's a pandemic of loneliness. How do we overcome this loneliness?
One of the slippery slopes that we've gotten ourselves into with technology, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing, it does connect us, but it connects us transactionally instead of our humanity and those moments of being together. We cheapen our connection a bit. Connection exists beyond language, ideology, religion. It's a shared experience that we have in this world if we tap into it.
We can play a role in this world of bringing more meaning and joy.
We all want to know that what we're doing is meaningful and that it matters. The more that we connect with life around us, we actually start to see.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Kasib Al-Mashat. I am thrilled to share today's conversation with Jules Kuroda, the author of Innate Self. You are more than your mind, body, and emotions. Jules' passion is helping people get past the idea they have of themselves to unlock more fulfillment. She believes that our minds are wonderful and dangerous tool depending on how we wield them. That is so true. She loves complexity and strives for simplicity, and believes that the world is more interesting with our paradoxes explored. Her aim is to bring more joy and understanding to the world, and she hopes that the innate self will bring more of both to you. I'm definitely on board with that aim. Jules, warm welcome to you to the Pause to Elevate podcast.
Thank you so much, Kasim. I'm so thrilled to be here and excited to talk to you about this today. It's obviously like a huge passion of mine, but I think there's so much overlap in what we're trying to do in the world that I think it's just going to be a great conversation. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. Me too. I've already enjoyed the conversation we had before the recording. So thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, you have such an interesting background. And you mentioned this in your book. You are a seeker, but as well as a corporate hippie. And I love that. I was like, yeah. And so what is the background that led you to even want to write this book?
Yeah, so there's maybe two parts to that, like my background and then why did I want to write this book. So maybe I'll
Mm.
journey through both of those a little bit. But
Yes.
I came up through a fairly non-traditional background in that I started in education. I'm a teacher at heart. I love the idea
Mm.
of really helping people learn and understand things and creating that space to explore, like big into curiosity. And so I started my journey that way and actually landed in refugee resettlement work, which really
Wow.
powerfully impacted my own life in a very different way. It became less
Mm.
about me teaching and more about me learning, and learning a lot about the human condition and what it means to be a light no matter what has happened in your life. And it just taught
Wow.
me, yeah, it taught me so much. And so from there, I actually got really interested in psychology. I was like, okay, I need to understand like how people tick more. And at the time, I was also working with a nonprofit who had an orphanage in Liberia, and I was trying to influence all of these board
Mm.
members, executives, and I didn't have the right tools to
Mm.
get into their headspace. So that led me into a master's in organizational leadership,
Ah,
and alongside that, I got my executive coaching certification, which was a personally such a
yeah.
transformative experience for
Because you
me.
have to do the work to be in there.
You
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
do. And it was one of those moments I'll never forget. Like I was sitting in coaching and I was like, this is what I'm meant to do with my life. Like this is my calling. It's like education meets like the encourager spirit
Mm.
that I am. And then I landed myself a job in the corporate space, which was incredible because it gave me
Mm.
this real practice training ground to understand how leaders struggle in their daily lives.
Mm.
During that time, so I've been an executive coach for like 10 years.
Mhm.
And one of the really interesting, this is what got me into writing the book, is, I spent all this time with leaders unpacking their thinking. We have all of these really great frameworks around the mind, around the power of the mind. It's such
Mm.
like this tool that we have that can create reality for us, and it also can create traps. So we have to
Oh,
learn
yeah.
how to use it, right? And how to wield it, which is so much of the mindfulness piece I think that you get into.
Yeah.
And then I think for about 40 years, we've been talking about emotional intelligence. We really understood the power of
Hmm.
emotions, understanding what's going on in you, recognizing there's a skill set to understanding what's happening in other people and valuing perception and the ability to read emotions and body language. Um,
Hmm.
and with that, I think has come the rise of somatic work, which is,
Right.
understanding how you hold tension in your body. There's a beautiful book, The Body Keeps the Score. You
Yeah,
probably are familiar with
Vanderkolk.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That really helps us understand how trauma stays with us and just how the body actually holds and our emotions and how we can learn through that.
Mm.
And in all of these conversations, we'd explore all these different frameworks. And then we would come to almost always in our executive conversations, we would get to a place where they wanted to talk about meaning and purpose and joy. And
Mm.
there is no framework in like a corporate space, even in the personal development space, to talk about this more esoteric piece of ourself that looks for meaning and purpose and contribution and joy and a space to create. And that's why I wrote The Innate Self.
Mm.
It's really trying to create a framework to allow us to have a different conversation in the personal transformation space to understand the more esoteric part of ourselves that's kind of been left out of the conversation,
Mm.
or has been saved for sort of religious spiritual territories. But it's such a key part of the human experience. And so I wanted to create a way to talk about that, to dissect.
Ah. Yeah, there's a lot of meaning making. You're bringing aspects of the heart, aspects something beyond just the. I think one of the chapters you have is contribution rather than recognition. Like we
Yeah.
confuse recognition and get caught up in how many likes or how many whatever. Right.
I mean, we all want that validation, right? We all want to know that what we're doing is meaningful and that
Mm.
it matters on some level. I think that's a tick in our innate being of wanting to know that what we're doing means something. Um, and we get confused with the validation piece of that and the need for recognition with the need to actually contribute. And
Mm.
that is one of the things I think that actually lends us to some of the loneliness I talk about is
Right.
if we hold back our talents and our gifts and our skills, for whatever reason, and are not contributing, it will make us feel isolated. And we all want to know that we're here for a purpose and we're contributing to something. It's a common theme, at least that I've seen as I've worked across,
Mm.
people for the 10 years. So
Mm. So then, in terms of mentioning loneliness, it's really a big issue worldwide.
this,
Sense of loneliness. We have technology that can connect us everywhere, but there's a pandemic of loneliness
yeah,
and what it brings. So what you're bringing forth is this idea of like if we focus more on contribution, or if we focus more on meaning and fulfillment, it leads us to connect rather than just like leads us to do something.
yeah,
I guess is that where you're going with it? It made me wonder. It is such a big problem. I said, how can we overcome it from your lens?
yeah.
How do we overcome this loneliness?
It's such an important topic. I'll break it down how I see it.
Please, yeah.
I think um, I think one of the slippery slopes that we've gotten ourselves into with technology, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing, it does connect us,
Mm.
but it connects us transactionally. Like we have these moments and connections that aren't filled with presence and with the space to be and to feel the
Mhm.
emotion that other people have. That it's much more transactional. And I think when we start to utilize technology instead of our humanity and those moments of
Mm.
being together and experiencing life together, we cheapen our connection a bit. Like we've
Mm.
substituted out the really healthy food for the fast food, and we think we're gonna feel the same level of health. And so I
Mm.
think it's really important for us to like see technology for the tool that it is and for a method to connect, but not confuse that for actual connection.
Ah.
um, I think that's one piece. I'll pause there if you have
Well,
other thoughts.
you know what? When you're saying this, it just made me think of nurturing. Like connections can be really nourishing and nurturing. And I
Yeah,
guess when you describe it as food, it's like whether it's like we're connecting with someone with just Instagram or Facebook, it still provides us a bit of food, But you're saying it's not the high quality, nourishing food. We're getting something,
Mhm.
but it's not the high potency of human connections. Just
Absolutely. And
uh,
and I think there's a trickle effect that kind of comes from that. So the other thing, when we use mostly social online platforms is we kind of get caught in our ideological buckets. Because
mm,
that's how some of the algorithms work, right? So we're like literally put into categories, and we start to see content that is curated for us, usually with some intention behind it. And so it starts to actually build ideological camps. And I
right.
think like one of the things that we have to realize is connection is outside of ideology. Like, yes, we can connect through ideology, but
Mm,
connection is so much bigger than that. And this is one of the things I felt so deeply, and I have lots of stories in my book about this. But
mhm,
one of the most prominent stories that I tell around experiencing connection, I was with a family from Bhutan who had been living in
mhm.
Nepal, and they didn't speak any English. I mean, they literally were like, "Hello," that was it. And they show up to my classroom, and I'm supposed to teach them English, and they were just like full of light and joy and like
Wow,
colorful. They're all in yellow. They look like shepherds.
amazing! And you were just remind you were in Bhutan. No, this was where
No, I was in Chicago
in
actually doing
Chicago. Right, right.
yeah,
Yeah.
resettlement work. And what happened over the course of several weeks, I mean, they just sat in my classroom and they smiled and they listened and
Mm,
they had no idea what I was saying. And about 4 weeks into being there, they invite me to their home. And they,
mm,
they had to do it with a translator because I didn't understand anything they were saying. And I'm thinking to myself, gosh, it's so intimate to go to their house. Like, what are
mm.
we going to do? I can't, we're not going to be able to
There's no
exchange
language. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
language. Like, how are we gonna sit in each other's presence? So truthfully, I was nervous about it. So I
Mm,
got a friend to come with me. Um, and it was actually a profound experience of connection because
mm,
when I got there, like it was filled with space and time and care. It wasn't filled with like the busyness, the chatter that we often fill space with. It was
yeah.
sitting down together and unfolding of all of this beautiful food that they'd made. We sat in somewhat silence together, smiling at
Mm,
one another, enjoying the sensory experience of what it means to like break bread together.
wow.
And at the end of this, they asked me to come in and they performed like a ceremony over me. And they were speaking all in Hindi, and I
Oh,
didn't
beautiful.
understand a word, but they did the tika, the rice where they put it on my head, and
Oh,
it was
yeah, yeah.
just such a beautiful moment in my life that I almost walked away from because I was afraid of the connection because I didn't know how we would connect without language. And
Mm,
and flipped on its head, it was this powerful moment in my life that showed me connection exists beyond language, ideology, religion.
mm,
It's a shared experience that we have in this world if we tap into it.
mm. Yeah, there's something about being vulnerable, actually. Like,
Yeah,
it's uncomfortable. It's comfortable for you to go, I can't make it.
exactly.
Oops, that day doesn't work,
Yeah,
and it's done, right? And I think we've all done that.
for
It's
sure.
maybe we're not comfortable, but there's something about connection. In order to gain the richness that you just described and experience something you wouldn't have, is you were willing to be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and you were willing to be vulnerable. Like, I don't know what's gonna go, how it's gonna happen, and
Yeah.
um,
And
yeah,
just opening yourself up a little bit, like this is one of the things I talk about on the as sort of that, how do we create connection, is let's step away from all of the ideology for a moment. Let's
mm,
find the shared human moments. Let's focus on our commonalities, not our differences,
right,
and shared experiences. But let's also recognize, like, this is where I talk about the mind is like our frenemy. It's really powerful,
yes,
but it also and we judge, like, as a we judge, and it's our mind judges to protect us. Like,
mm,
that is part of its beautiful role as like a guardian.
yeah,
But we weaponize it without even recognizing it by just judging ourselves all the time, or judging the situation, or anticipating discomfort, or anticipating the worst thing that could happen.
mm,
um, and so we actually block a lot of connection in our lives by not being open to it, to receive it, to
right.
be present for it. But we have so much power and control over that.
So it's also like to protect, which goes back to what you said earlier. This mind is a it's a tool. This is an incredible organ. Really, I mean, think of it. It's just an organ right here inside the skull, and it helps us make sense of the world. It's incredibly powerful, but it's also the source of our demise. Like if we don't work with it, if we don't tune it, and that's what led me to this interest in psychology and mindfulness. And
Yeah,
how can we tune this instrument? How can we work with this instrument? Right.
absolutely.
I,
Absolutely.
I want to go back to something you said about the frenemy. Can you say more? Because in your book you describe like frenemy as a roommate,
Yeah.
and like the four different rooms. Can you like what are the four rooms?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
find it helpful.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm so glad to
Yeah.
hear that. Yeah, so this is an empirical thing again, like working with so many different people. One of the things I started to notice, and I am not the original coiner of the phrase internal roommates. I think I picked it up from Michael Singer, but I love that as a construct. Like we have these things that live in our head, these voices that live in our head that we don't talk about because we don't want to sound
Mm.
crazy, but we all have them, and I tend to find that they fall into four different camps. We have the critic. And
Mhm.
this is the internal roommate that's really good at telling you everything you're terrible at,
Oh
just like
yeah,
how
yeah,
you really suck at that thing, like beats you up over,
yeah.
that little mistake that you made, and it's there again to try to help protect us from making the same mistake
Mm.
twice, to learn from our mistakes, to shield us from embarrassment and all of those things. Like it serves a real role, but
To protect.
to protect.
Yeah, yeah.
But it can be a runaway voice if we don't recognize it and
Mm.
separate our identity from it. So that's one of our roommates.
Mm.
The second roommate is our doubter. And this
Mhm.
is the one that's like, oh, I don't know if we can do it. I don't know if you're ready. I don't know. That sounds scary. I don't know what's going to be on the other side of that. And this one's sneaky because it sounds like our friend. That's
Friend in disguise. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
just, yeah, exactly. But again, all of these are trying to protect us from something. They take different kind of methods.
Mm.
The third is the blamer. This is,
Mm.
and blame can go both ways. Like I blame you for all my problems,
Yeah.
or I blame me for all of the problems. And we have to be careful with this one because if the critic and the blamer get together, it's very, very self-destructive.
That's a party.
It's
That's going spiraling down. Yeah.
right. But then we have this other voice, the
Mm.
encourager, the cheerleader. And I talk about it as the encourager, and it's the one that's like, it has a little bit of faith, I believe you can do it. Like, you can do it, try. And we have to nurture that that roommate because that's the one
Mm.
that actually helps us believe in things and try things and learn into things and grow and foster our curiosity. So we have to watch the roommates and who we're
Mhm.
letting live up there, and take up the most headspace, so to speak.
Mm. As you're describing, you remind me. There's a beautiful poem by Rumi called "The Guest House,"
Yep.
right? And he speaks about like all these unexpected visitors that show up
Yep.
in our lives. In a way, those roommates, it's something that's going to show up, and I think people get stuck with. Well, I can't get rid of this voice and this, but that's the mindfulness piece, being aware. It's okay for that voice to be there. I just hating it or fueling it doesn't work. But actually, this may sound strange for some maybe listeners, is loving all parts of ourselves. Here's a part of it's like, thank you. I know you're trying to protect me. I get it. Thank
Exactly.
you.
Mhm.
It's a bit of like parts work in counseling. We call it parts work. Here's a part that's trying to,
Yeah.
it's okay, but we don't have to listen to it.
And I
Yeah.
think that's such an important thing that you said, Kasim, because like even when I'm doing coaching work, it's more like recognize what that voice is trying to do. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's there for a reason. It's trying to protect something. And it's either something from our past that we're afraid of revisiting, it's some hurt that we haven't actually unpacked and healed from. It's something. And so the more we can
Mm,
get curious, and explore it with some kindness, some generosity,
yeah.
we can we can thank it and also say, please be on your way. I need to hear something else right now.
Yeah, yeah. Exit stage left, please. Right, like. But see, that requires us to sit with it and be with it, right? To
That's right.
be with the discomfort and maybe loop it back to what we said earlier. But like you visiting this family, it's uncomfortable, but you allowed yourself to feel that.
Yeah.
And with technology, it's like if there's 5 seconds nothing's happening, we got to fill it quickly. Look at the phone and scroll, and
That's
it's like, what
absolutely
happens? What happens if we sit? We just sit, just
yeah.
just breathe, just look around, just
I know. This is where you
yeah,
can tell it's a little bit of an addiction because
yeah, yeah.
where's my other appendage? We have to watch that, in ourselves. And one of the things that I
Mm.
personally have found to be such an important piece of being able to do this, to sit with ourselves, is spending time in nature. Uh,
Mm.
the more that we connect with life around us, not just
Mm.
life within us, um, we actually open up. We start to see more. We kind of get out of our heads a bit, um,
Mm.
and see kind of the interconnectedness of life, and it can just really open up some space. I think, especially for people who may have a harder time,
Yeah.
practicing.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to quickly thank you for stopping by and watching this content. It truly means the world to me that you're interested in creating positive change. I also want to invite you to join our amazing community. I have free events online about mindfulness, mindfulness based stress reduction, laughter, as well as retreats that you can do from the comfort of your own home. And are you ready for this? Self paced program that you can do about mindfulness and stress reduction. So you can join the newsletter below to stay up to date on all these goodies. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and press that button. It really helps me to keep this content going and reach out to more guests. Thank you so much again, and may you continue enjoying watching this episode. Can you say more about that? Because nature really is healing, and
Yeah,
sometimes I'm too busy, and maybe someone it's not near them, but
yeah,
when I say not near them, like there isn't a park near them, but
yeah,
still, if we step outside, look at the sky. Sky is still nature. Clouds is still nature. You know what I mean, like, it doesn't
yeah.
have to be a tree. There's nature around you. So, can you say more about this nature and like, what do you suggest for your clients in terms of, is there things you suggest about nature?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to start with a little bit of a personal anecdote just to kind of
Mm.
frame the way that I think about nature. But during the pandemic, we were living in LA, which it does have a lot of nature for a large city. But my husband and I were like, "Hey, let's get out of here." We were like the first people to buy an RV, I think, because when we showed up at the national at the national parks, nobody else was out there yet.
You were
Uh,
ahead of the curve. It's great.
yeah, we did. So, it was actually great because I was pivoting out of my company, was in live entertainment. Live entertainment was like crashing during the pandemic.
Mm,
And by unplugging and being in nature, when the transitions happened in my life, I actually wasn't worried. I wasn't consumed with like, what am I going to do next? Because I was sitting literally in the abundance of nature, and you just feel a
mm,
little bit more taken care of if you start to pay attention to how much of our life and our resources come from the world around us. I mean, from the air we breathe to the food we eat to the water we drink. I mean, it's all coming from the
yeah.
world, and we just don't pay that much attention. And
Mm,
so it was a great chance to unplug and to just look around and to be
mhm.
reminded of how connected we are to it, even when we forget that.
Right.
This is like the interconnectedness piece. And so I have both. I had the real privilege of getting to spend kind of like expounded time in like huge nature with city living and what that means. And I think what you said is exactly right. It's finding space to,
Mm,
to take a walk, to look at the trees you have around you, see if there are flowers, sniff a flower, get yourself a
right.
house plant. Like these little things are signals to us to help us be reminded of,
Mm.
the bigger world and context around us.
Mm. I love it. It's so like actually simple,
Mhm.
but it's available. Like
Mhm.
I wonder if sometimes we make it really big. Like, oh, I have to go to this far away big mountain,
Yeah.
this massive like whatever. Gotta go Grand Canyon, or I gotta go to the Rockies if you're in Canada. It's like, oh, I gotta go to really well. Nature can be just a plant.
Yeah, and just
Like
being present with it,
be
right?
present with a plant. Nature could be just taking in the smell of the wind that's
Yes.
outside, or
Yes.
just like it really is simple. It's available.
It really is. Like, when's the
Yeah.
last time you walked outside and put your toes in the grass? You know, it's little
Yeah.
things. There's so many little things, and like kids are great at this because kids will look up at the sky and they'll see like, you know, cartoons in the clouds, and their minds are immediately filled up with like imagination
Yeah.
through nature, and we just are so busy, and we're on
Yeah.
such a mission, and we have so many things to do that I think a large part of our challenge is just presence, and awareness, which is again why the mindfulness piece is so key as a practice. But yeah, there's lots of little things we can do to just be present.
Hmm. You know, in your book you speak as well about creativity and, you know,
Yeah.
expanding. Can you share about that? Why is it important for
Yeah.
us to fuel our creativity, and how do we do that?
Yeah. I think creativity is like one of I talk about it as like the spice of life. Like everybody wants to
Mm,
be able to flex their creativity. The interesting thing, kind of going back to the idea of the mind, a lot of times people are their own worst critic and they're like, I'm not creative because
right.
they're not like a painter. But creativity comes in so many different forms. And
Uh-huh.
one of the things I laid out in the book is like there are four different kind of buckets of creativity.
Mm,
And I talk about it as functional creativity. You think about the people who make our world go around, right? Like the
mm.
infrastructure design, the buildings that we have, to the roads we have. Like somebody dreamed that up and made it.
Right. It started as a thought
It
somewhere.
started as a thought. And it's incredibly functional. And so I think sometimes we tend to not think about that as being creative because we have some association with creativity, but
Mm,
it's very creative. And so honoring that kind of creativity in yourself, if you're that kind of like engineer, functional, I want to design products, I want to come up with, that's great. We need that.
right.
So that's one bucket. The second I talk about is innovation. Right, these are our innovators. These are the people who see
Mm,
forward, like the people who create AI, the people who are
mm,
literally thinking into the future of what will we want and how do we create that to make our lives better.
mm,
Solar systems, meaning like solar energy and things of that nature, all very innovative.
mhm.
The third type of creativity is what I call the artistic creativity. This is kind of our classic definition of creativity.
Right. Being artistic. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's our painters. It's like people who work with their hands to create um, something beautiful or
Mm,
grotesque or interesting to really like articulate something within them, and usually there's some skill or ability and some exploration through that. But
mhm.
it's kind of our classic definition of creativity is artistic creativity.
I think it's probably where most people think when we say creative. Oh, I'm not artistic. I can't create, so I'm not that. Then they eliminate the other ones you're describing. Yeah, yeah.
100%, right?
And the
Oh,
fourth one?
the fourth one is cognitive creativity, and this is the
Mm,
idea space, right? This is coming up with theories and ideas, and really helping lay out new ways of thinking and exploration. I think of all of the academics living in this space, such an important space. It's so much of
mm,
how we explore thoughts and ideas and future kind of infrastructure of our minds is from the
mm,
cognitive creativity space.
mm. So then connecting, and what have you seen in terms of from your work? Do people lean into one of those, or do you encourage them to explore all of them?
Yeah.
If someone goes like, I don't know what I'm good at, or I don't know
Yeah.
what I'm creative at, like, how do you encourage them to, like, what's the step they can
Take.
take care of their
Yeah.
creativity, or bring more of it?
Well, a little shameless plug. I have a quiz in my book that does
Yeah.
help walk through help you identify your type of creativity. But
Yeah.
more generally speaking, I think there's a couple of things here. Like one, I think um, creative space is a space we need to apply play to. It's
Mm,
not a place to judge. It's a place to have openness and like explore. So
mm,
just because you're not good at something doesn't mean you can't create something. And sometimes the art of doing is there's an unfolding, and you find what you're good at or you find what you're interested in.
mm,
I worked with an executive a while back who was really very like black and white in their thinking. So we put him in a pottery class
hmm.
because it's all about molding and
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
the fluidity, and he was so frustrated because things weren't coming out perfect when he started, but through the course he learned a different way, like an openness, like, oh, if you actually work, if you apply pressure,
Mm.
this is what happens. If you release pressure, this is what happened. How can I use that in my
Ah.
leadership skills and thinking? And so there's a dance we do with creativity that allows an unfolding to happen where we can learn something. But it
Mm.
doesn't happen if we apply all this pressure to be great at it right out the gate, right? So
Right.
it's a space to play.
Yeah. And in the process, something emerges. Like you're playing, and with no expectation,
Yes.
and just willing to explore. And I guess we all are comfortable in one thing,
Yeah.
and then what you're encouraging us to go. Well, let's go play and explore other things. Like maybe something emerges,
Yeah.
and ultimately, it's not going to happen if we don't try something. I think
That's
that's
right.
the
Yes.
thing. It's like, that's what I love about your book. It's not just making us think about concept and ideas, but it's like, well, what are we going to do with it, right?
Yeah.
Like, where's action? What is a step we can take? And you guide us. You have many questions in your book to make us think about what can I do rather than just theory.
Hmm.
And as you're saying this, I just remembered, I think it's an Irish proverb. I think so. I really loved it. Let's see if I can remember it. It's something about you can't plow a field by turning it in your head.
Oh,
Do you know
that's
what I mean? Like, like
yeah.
you just gotta go and plow the
You gotta
field,
go do it. Yeah.
right? And I think I know I've struggled with that at times, or like I can overthinking something. Let's
Yes.
just go and do it. Like even this podcast, or even getting on Instagram. Like I
Hmm.
didn't get started till like last year. I'm like, I don't
Hmm.
know, I don't have time for this. Just do it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
And we apply that same thing to connection, right?
mm,
We overthink it. We complicate it, I think, with all of the expectations we put on it. Like we need to employ a little bit of fun, a little bit of play, a little, like,
mm,
where's the pressure valve release? We need to, like, just try some things. And one of the things I talk about in the book is something
mm,
so simple, but I have a whole life story around it. It's just the power of smiling. And sounds so simple you shouldn't even say it out loud, I know, but
mm.
it's so true, because how often are we walking past people that are
Yeah.
just so in their own zone, and when someone smiles, it's just like a crack of a window, just a little invitation to
Mm,
say, I'm open to you as a human walking by me. If you
yeah.
say hi, I'm probably going to say hi back. And you get that, such a small signal
Mm.
in that, and it was, like I said, it was a kind of a profound experience in my own life using something so simple. So
Yeah. Laughter is really a connector. Really
exactly.
is. It
Yeah.
really is, because it doesn't matter what language or culture or beliefs or political. It's just like it's a smile.
Exactly.
It's a connection. And
It
I don't know if
absolutely.
have you heard of laughter yoga?
So I just heard that on your podcast,
I
actually.
Yeah, yeah.
I heard that before that, but I was like, I gotta go
It
find
is oh, it is so much fun. I got into 2007 because I mean I heard of it and I was like, well, this sounds silly. I don't know if it's for me. And
it.
and
Sure.
it literally is just laughing for no reason and breathing.
Yeah.
And I've been kind of teaching it. And it's just a way to connect. It's a reason for us to be together. And,
Yeah.
whoever shows up with no judgment, to
Yeah.
connect and laugh. and
And like,
and it just reminds me we need more spaces of, just like you said, like connecting to who you are.
and laughter's contagious too, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's like yawning. Like, don't yawn now that I just said the word yawn, but laughter, you laugh, I can't help but be a little bit uplifted, and that's the power too of, like, we are so interconnected even if we don't see it, that if
Mm,
we never try just little things, we get stuck in our, like, own self-imposed isolation a bit,
mm.
because if you I can't help but respond to you. If you're laughing hysterically, I'm gonna be like,
Right.
"What's going on over there?" I'm
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah, totally.
like, I'm intrigued, you know? We can't help it. So there's just so much we can do, to help
Yeah,
break down those barriers.
yeah. And I guess so. Even as you're mentioning it in the book as well, it's giving us a chance to think about it. Like that's simple. That's free. We can smile.
Right.
We can. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't. You just be aware, and Right. Is there anything else that you've encouraged your clients in terms of finding that smile? Is it doing things that they enjoy and bring them a smile, or what else have you found?
So there's several characteristics I talk about in the innate self or the innate being, and I kind of use them interchangeably. But one of the things that has been long talked about is like the power of gratitude. And I
Mm,
think just having a gratefulness practice is such a key to helping us channel some of what we're talking about around openness and little things like smiling. Like if you sit and think about all of the things that you have in your life that you may or may not be have gotten them yourselves, they've been given to you in whatever way, like there's so
mm,
much to be grateful for. And that, like, again, going back to some of my experience with a refugee community who has experienced so much trauma
yeah.
and pain, have been some of the most grateful people I've ever met. And
Mm,
that
right.
parallel blew open my mind, because what you realize is that, like, suffering is actually a way through to gratitude. Like, it actually creates a container. When you get on the other side of it, you're so much more
Mm,
attuned to the little things to be grateful for than if you just take it all for granted because you never experienced that pain. And so pain actually is a conduit, can be such a powerful thing in our lives. The way I talk about it is, like, like all that crap we carry around is great fertilizer for the next thing in your life
yeah.
if we process it and we let it be. And so there's just something there in the practice of being grateful, again, and being mindful of those
Mm.
things.
So how you're describing it too. It's how we work with what shows up, because suffering is inevitable. It's just gonna happen.
Yes.
Some pain, some disappointment, some hurt.
Yeah.
Things won't go our way. Bad things happen. Part of being alive, we'll have all of that. And then what do we do? And I
Yeah.
guess it takes us to choice. Maybe
Mhm.
we don't choose the bad things, but when they happen, we can choose what to do about it.
Mhm.
We can choose how to work with it. And I
Absolutely.
guess that's the power that we can have. It's like, okay, what am I going to do with this? And you're describing
Yeah.
gratitude is one of them. Is and by the way, I just want to mention this because I appreciated that in the book. Sometimes it's used gratitude or all these other ways of appreciating as like toxic positivity, like, oh, just be grateful. It's like, look at the silver lining, everything's wonderful here. And that kind of minimizes. No, I just lost this person, or I just went through suffering, or this bad thing happened. It's like, no, it's both.
Mhm.
It's like that really happened, yes,
Mhm.
and we can be still grateful about other things in life. Like it's
Mhm.
not pushing down or
Mhm.
covering. I wonder, what do you think of that? Do you see people confusing those two?
Absolutely. And I
Mm,
think, like, this is why one of the reasons I wanted to create a framework for understanding this
mm,
part of ourselves is because there are multiple different tiers. Like, gratitude is one thing we can use, but when we're in a moment of suffering and pain, like,
mm.
maybe that's not the moment we can be grateful. That's okay. Why
Right.
don't we practice something else? Like, maybe it's a moment for our character. Like, we pull close to our values and we really think about, who do I want to be in this moment of
Mm,
suffering? Or maybe it's a moment to practice courage, which is one of our other characteristics of, like, how do I get through this in the
mm,
most powerful way, or be a better person on the other side of this? Like, is there a place to employ courage, or maybe generosity? Sometimes when we feel pain,
yeah.
giving something to someone else actually makes us feel better. So there's different ways we can come at it if we
Mm,
understand, like, the different aspects of this part of ourself, because they work kind of holistically together to make this part of us strong. So when one
mm.
part of us is hurting, how can we leverage some of the other muscles?
Mm. So really multidimensional. This,
Yeah.
and I guess you really answered a question, but I had in the beginning. I realized I didn't even ask you that. Is like, what is the innate self? All right, like,
Yeah.
and I think you're just listing, and you've came up with it. Maybe we start with there as well. Is like the letter N and the number 8. And
Yeah.
when I first saw the cover of your book, it took me a couple of seconds. I'm like, N8 self? What's N8 self? And then I click like, oh, innate
Yeah.
self. So
Yeah.
what was behind that choice of words? And
Yes.
then what is innate self? If you can list it again,
Yes.
that'd be
Yeah,
great.
totally. So I chose innate, in to represent our higher nature. So the capital N
Mm,
is like, what is our higher nature? And it has 8 characteristics. And it's a double entendre, which I love. So it's the innate self. It's in all of us. It's like a born in the spark of the human, you know, divinity within us.
mm,
And how do we understand it, and how do we wrap our arms around it, and what's a framework to talk about it? And so the innate self for me, you mentioned Rumi earlier. There's this one of my favorite poems from Rumi
mm,
is, let's try not to butcher it, but out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there lies a field, and I'll meet you there. And
mm,
that's what I'm trying to create with the innate self, is the field of understanding our esoteric self without getting caught up in all of the ideology that comes with
mm,
spirituality and religion. It's there's a place for that, but it is like, how do we talk about and build the muscle of this part of us that longs for meaning and purpose and joy and creativity and
mm,
contribution, and it has all these characteristics to it. And so it's like any other muscle within us that we need to know how to engage with and exercise. And so the 8 characteristics it goes through character and contribution.
mm,
Connection is a big one. Courage. There's,
mm,
you know, we go through each one of them in the book,
mm,
and they build on each other because
mm,
it's all interwoven. And meaning is one of them. Like, we all search for some kind of meaning, whether it's micro meaning, like what did that look mean, or
yeah,
macro
yeah.
meaning on what am I
Yeah.
doing with my life. We look for meaning. We're meaning seekers.
Mm,
And so, like, why not bring those questions to the forefront and explore them wide open? Like, bring
mm,
all your curiosity to that space. It's only going to make your life so much more interesting, instead of
mm.
like stuffing that down, or being afraid to ask those questions because we don't know
Mm.
where it'll lead us.
It is such a creative way. It's actually it's like how you're describing it. Like the letter N and eight is innate, but it's also our true nature, and it's the 8 characteristics. Like that's just pretty complex. When you're like, wow, I don't know how you came up with that. It's like well, you put it all together, boom, and there it is. Was there a moment it came to you? Like I'm wondering, how did that? Poof.
There was a moment that it came to me. It's funny because I talk in the opening just a little bit about myself. Like, I love complexity. Like, I love whole systems. And so I'm like, okay, how am I going to explain this? And I was like, it's our higher nature. I don't want to get into this kind of language because I want to open up a new space to talk about this socially. And it was just like, it was like a zing moment. It was like, there's 8 characteristics. It's our higher nature. It's our innate self. And so I'll take it. I'll take it.
You'll take it. Thank you very much. Thank you. But
What
you
do I
see,
take?
you actually role modeled. You lived what you're speaking about. You just engage in a process that gives you fulfillment, meaning, and create. And then something's going to show up. Like you didn't imagine that word before you started. Like,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people, maybe, and including me, sometimes it's like, don't start until I have the answer. But no, start and then you'll get some answers. And here's this, like even just so symbolic, the name of this book, how you created, like you went forward
Thank you.
and
I'm
you
honored
created.
that you see that and that you say that. It's very humbling.
Mm,
So I think, you know, I get caught in that trap too. I think we all
yeah.
do. And like, we all wanted things to come together perfectly, and there's so much pressure to do it right.
Yeah.
And so that coming back to one of, I think, the first questions you asked me around like my meaning seeker,
Mm,
this for me, this project was 100% about, what am I seeing that people don't have a framework for? How do I
mm,
help? How can I contribute to providing clarity and guiding people with like the coaching training and the life experiences I've had
mm,
through something that's hard and like that we all long for, but we can kind of be scared of, or we don't know how to
yeah.
engage with. And can I be a part of offering some value to people who are on that journey of seeking
Mm.
more meaning and fulfillment in their life? And so that's my greatest aspiration for this, is that
Yes.
to contribute something in that space.
Yes, well, you are because it's already helping us see there's more to us than we think. Like we're so multidimensional, like so many things, and just the possibility. Wait, there's 8 things we can explore about ourselves. What? Like that alone, it's like it's a perspective paradigm shifter. Like, wait a minute. Well, I got to think about, well, yeah, and I wonder, and I know you lay it out so beautifully in the book, including again questions, and you have little quizzes, but I wonder if you can speak about the character.
Yeah.
So what is that?
Oh, character was my hardest chapter to write.
Mm,
And the reason why is when I started to look at how do we talk about character today, like socially.
mm,
I was going back to my Jane Austen novel days. I'm like, where is character in like the social construct conversation? Like we talk
mm,
about integrity, which is like a tenet of character, but it's the idea of character is like who do you want to be in this life? Like
mm,
what are your values? Where are your ethics? What are your morals? Like gosh, we that's a it felt very
mm,
difficult to pull that from like common kind of popular psychology um,
mm,
across the board. And so when I started to really think about it, I talk a bit about technology as I think it is. It's something that if we're not careful, can there's a there you know the story of Narcissist is something we should all take seriously when we think about social media because we do just sit I mean not even just social media. I mean like I work remotely, I see myself on camera all day long.
yeah, yeah.
What does that create within us? There's a
Mm,
level of self-consciousness, maybe obsession that can come out of that if we're not careful with what our relationship is. And so I talk a lot about chasing substance over
mm,
image, and what does it mean
right.
to really think about who you want to be and define the deeper parts of you, your values. What does it mean to be ethical? Like, and how do you make
Mm,
ethical decisions? Morals, I think, are a little bit more black and white for us. It's kind of our personal Ten
yeah, yeah,
Commandments to talk
yeah.
about it. Ethics is all about how we handle the gray, and so it's a that whole chapter is about it's pretty reflective around who do you want to
Mm,
be, how do you define your values, and what gets you through the sticky situations in your life and who do you want to be through that.
this is actually in the counseling realm.
Mm.
One of the modalities is called ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. There's many modalities, and there's no right one. And this one uses some mindfulness, so acceptance and commitment therapy or ACT. But one of the things it does, it's actually what you're doing, which is get to know your values and then make a commitment to choose to do things to move towards those values
Yeah.
and not let whatever it's anxiety or mood or whatever the challenge is dictate the direction we're going in life. You're letting your values. So in a way, you're tapping into these values.
Yeah.
And how many of us actually stop and pause and go, "What are my values? I don't know." Like it's like
Yeah.
so. There's something very reflective, like stepping
Yeah.
back and going, "What is it that's meaningful to me?" So I can contribute and find fulfillment. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I think it's also a space like we've got to give ourselves some space to try. Like one of the things I just talked briefly about, but like I was going through Benjamin Franklin's whole thing on
mm,
the 13 virtues, and he prescribed a methodology to it. He was like, these are the 13 things I want to be. I'm going to build myself a checklist and I'm going to go through every day and rate myself on this checklist. I'm going to
yeah,
see where I'm falling down. I'm not subscribing that everybody should do that, but I think it's what I love about that approach is this idea it's something you have to build. It's not something
yeah,
you just are. It's something you have to practice. And the decisions you make every day are either getting you closer to that vision of your character that you want
mm,
or taking you further away from it. And that
mm.
is like that's some juicy work right there.
Yeah. Well, that takes accountability.
Yes.
Like you
Yeah.
said, it's definitely delicious, juicy, deep, real, right?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
it takes like accountability, saying, "I'm gonna wait. What am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And if I'm wanting to be more kind, what have been my actions? Are they more kind?" And so, really, it takes taking accountability rather
Yes.
than like, "This is who I am," and that's it. It's like, no, well, what do you want to foster?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a whole section on accountability in there because I think like we there's such a powerful thing about owning our mistakes without
Mm,
us getting into the shame spiral. I'll use Brene Brown's
yeah,
you know, reference there, but I think we don't because we don't want to get caught in this, a lot of times we won't take accountability because I don't want to feel all these negative emotions. I don't want to feel guilty. I don't want to feel shame.
yeah.
But what does that do to us personally? And how does that also start to break down erosion and trust for us socially? Like we have to, that's something we've got to think about when we think about character.
Yeah, allowing us to feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned when you were just sharing a few moments ago about the story, and you mentioned in the book about Narcissus. I wonder if can you share that story for listeners? I think it's a really
Sure, sure. I wrote it better than I'll tell it. But
yeah, yeah.
the story of Narcissus is essentially you have this guy who's like half deity, half human, and there's this prophecy when he's born that he'll be very successful as long as he never sees himself. And
Mhm.
he everybody's in love with him. He's like I use the analogy, he's like the jock that just can't return
Mhm.
anybody's affection because he's just too cool for school. And then one day he's out hunting and he sees himself in a pond and he sits down and he falls in love with the image of himself. But it's this like
Mm.
the thing I love about this story is it's like this he falls in love with the idea and it's always out of reach. So he never actually even falls in love with a real thing. It's the image of a thing that's always
Mm.
unattainable. And that is the story
Yeah.
of narcissists, right? So we have to be so careful. And the reason I use it in as I talk about social media is I'm like, we should have a narcissist warning label, like a tobacco warning label on all of our social media that like, watch out. If you look at yourself all day long, you may start to have illusions of grandeur or like really, our sense of self can get kind of twisted and we have to be really careful that we're not just getting obsessed and chasing image over substance, right?
Yeah, yeah. Just an image that's flickering on a surface of a lake.
Yeah.
Just again, a very symbolic
Yeah,
surface, an image,
exactly,
surface of a lake. It's
exactly.
just yeah, yeah.
Totally.
Well, this has been so enjoyable, this conversation, and you truly have. I would really recommend your book because it makes us think, it makes us reflect, and it's very practical, it's tangible. Um, like it's not just theory again, which I really appreciate. It made me think,
To see how
and
it
I appreciate it. I mean, I think if we all do that, do our part in reflecting about where we're at, where we want to be, we can play a role in this world of bringing more meaning and joy.
yeah.
If we can all do that.
Well,
So,
thank you. I've been so honored. I appreciate you giving me the time and space
mm,
to unpack my thinking live with you. I also just really appreciate what you're doing in the world of really helping us think through mindfulness and bringing more
mm.
attention and, again, practice to the space. So I'm just honored to have had a chance to sit with you and postulate about life together.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And I'll put all the links in the show notes of where people can get your book and where can they find you. And I wonder, as we're coming to a close, a question I've been asking my guests is around the name of a podcast is Pause to Elevate.
Mhm.
And what does that mean for you when you hear the word pause to elevate? Is there ways that you pause, or what helps you elevate?
I love this question. So, I think my greatest way of pausing is to take a walk.
Mm,
So I've started lately trying to, I've got a young kid and I'll take him to school and then I'll go on a walk. And it's just such a nice way to reflect before I get into the busyness of all the things I need to accomplish in the day.
mm,
And I think it does help really elevate your mindset. Like you put yourself in a different headspace when you just take some time to be again in nature and
yeah.
reflective. So that's one of my greatest ways of pausing.
Mm. And that takes a choice. So I really encourage all the listeners and viewers to be curious about what helps you pause. It's something we have to do. It's not going to happen. We're going to have to make a choice to pause to elevate. And want to thank you again, truly, for this beautiful book and beautiful conversation. And I want to thank all the listeners and viewers for listening and watching. If you found it useful and helpful, feel free to share, like, and if you haven't done already, please subscribe. It helps me share more of this content and bring you as the best content that I can. Thank you, everyone. May your moments be filled with ease and may you be present in as many of them. Thank you. Hello there, and thank you so much for stopping by this channel. I hope you find this content useful, and if you do, feel free to hit that subscribe button. It will really help me to reach to more people and keep this content going. Here we are journeying together, and let's see where this takes us.